One thing I've always found fascinating about Ocarina of Time's first dungeon, the Great Deku Tree, is how seamlessly it teaches the player. Even now, a lot of modern games struggle to accomplish what this dungeon handled so effortlessly. It introduces core mechanics without ever truly feeling like a traditional tutorial. When you first enter the dungeon, you notice a few enemies, some climbable vines, and a fairly simple layout. At first, nothing really stands out, but as you move through the opening rooms, the game slowly begins teaching you how to approach obstacles using the tools and information already around you. And even though the puzzles are much simpler than the ones that appear later in the game, figuring them out still feels satisfying because the player is allowed to discover solutions independently instead of being guided through every step. Rather than constantly interrupting gameplay to explain mechanics, the dungeon encourages experimentation. You gradually learn how the world functions simply by interacting with it. Even small actions like climbing vines, pushing blocks, or lighting torches help build that understanding over time. Because the game isn't immediately handing you every answer, even small discoveries feel meaningful. You're not just following instructions, you're actively learning through exploration and curiosity. I still remember the first time I realized you could jump from the top floor and break through the web below. At first, it wasn't immediately obvious what the game wanted me to do, but the moment you figure it out for yourself, it just creates this genuine feeling of excitement that I honestly rarely even get in video games anymore. And it's moments like that are a huge reason why the dungeon continues to stand out years later. The game gives players room to experiment and make discoveries on their own, which makes even simple interactions feel engaging. Instead of feeling overly restrictive, the dungeon creates the sense that you're slowly becoming more comfortable within the world itself. Another reason the dungeon works so well is the way it encourages players to think about the environment differently as they progress. As you climb higher into the tree, you begin looking down into areas you had just explored earlier. Without directly spelling it out, the dungeon teaches players to pay attention to verticality and how different spaces connect together. That progression makes the area feel larger and more adventurous than it actually is. And because you're constantly uncovering new paths and revisiting older locations from different perspectives, exploration becomes just as important as combat or puzzle solving. I think that's a major reason why so many players, including myself, still remember the Great Deku Tree so fondly. It wasn't simply a section designed to explain mechanics before moving on. It felt like the true beginning of a grand adventure. The dungeon quietly teaches players how to observe, experiment, and interact with the world around them without constantly disrupting the experience. And because of that, to this day, the Great Deku Tree still succeeds in a way many modern tutorial sections struggle to replicate. Even after all these years, it feels less like a lesson and more like the beginning of something much bigger.